Okay, now that we have a better idea of what type of data we can answer a statistical question with, we also need to think about what type of graphs we can represent that data with. So this unit is entirely about categorical data. So you may have to know the difference between categorical versus numerical, but we are exploring the graphs that go with categorical data. So the first graph is the pie chart. It displays your categorical variables as slices. The big thing is that the area is proportional to the corresponding outcomes. So you're given some kind of distribution. That distribution can be counted and can be made into percentage. All pie charts are going to be percentages. And then from there, after you make them into percentages, you can represent them so that they equally represent the proportions. So the big thing is that you want to make sure that you have a key with all your pie charts. And you want to also make sure that your area is represented by the percent that you have. So if you're representing 50%, 50% should look like this. It should not look like this. So again, I'm trying to represent 50%. Obviously, that's a terrible circle, and I'm sorry, but this should not be your 50% because that looks like 25%. So I always start by just finding the middle, splitting it in half, splitting it in quarters, and then working on your percents from there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to do your best to represent them in a proportional way. So some questions and some ways that we can interpret our pie chart and look at it is this is about movie categories that let's say a classroom picked. So which movie category was picked the most? So obviously the most is the biggest percentage, which is the comedy. Okay, and which one was picked the least? So in this case, I've got two categories that were picked the same amount, but that's both the smallest number. So I'm going to say both foreign films and science fiction were picked equally as least or smallest. I don't know. So both were picked. Both foreign and science fiction are the smallest or the least favorites. Okay. From there, you can also use the graph and use its percentages to understand how many people fall in that percentage. So if I were to ask, if I surveyed 100 people, how many chose drama? So we look on our pie charts to find where's drama. Drama is this like dark purplish or dark blue. That's going to be 14%. So if I take 14%, which as a decimal is 0.14, multiply it by 100, that's going to tell me that 14 people chose drama. Okay, 100 is easy, so 100 times a percent is just that actual number. But what if I said you chose 216 people? So how many chose romance? Again, romance is 0.14 or 14%, and you're going to multiply that by 216. But you don't multiply percents, you multiply decimals. So 0.14 times 216 is going to be, I believe, 30 people. And that 30 people is a rounded 30. Okay, you never round up on a person, you always round down to the nearest whole number. So that's a big thing to remember, is you round down to nearest whole number when it comes to talking about people. So when you're talking about people. All right, so in the next example, we're going to look at how to make a pie chart when we're given a graph. So if I'm talking about how do people, what are people in the Johnson family using their car the most for? This is called a frequency, so it's a count. So I've got a frequency of what they're choosing the car categories for, and I use the total to find the percent. So for the percent, you take the frequency over the total. So that's going to be 6 over 12, 3 over 12, and I think that these percentages are pretty easy to find. But 6 over 12 is 50%, 3 over 12 is 25%, 25%. Okay, and then from there, when you're making your pie chart, you find the middle. Like I said, I like to do it so that I split it into 50s, and then I split it into quarters, which in this case is conveniently the numbers that I'm going to use. Now that I've gotten my proportions set up correctly, I have to make sure that I label. And you can label in a few different ways. You can go ahead and you can write the names within the pie chart, but that sometimes is kind of long. So what I like to do is I make a key. So the key has to make sure that it tells me what each category represents. So if I'm going to write it next to this, and that category in here represents that box, and shopping represents the box with the lines in it, and leisure trips represents the dots, then I'm going to make sure that I label accordingly. So blank one is my 50%, my lines are going to represent my shopping, and then my leisure trips are the dots. So hopefully pie charts are pretty simple for you. The big thing is you always want to make sure that you're using percentages. This graph, again, these numbers right here that are right around here, those are all going to be the distribution. So if I ask you a question, what's your favorite color? And I go to each of your classmates or I go to each of your family members and I say, what's your favorite color? And you tell me blue, pink, purple. Pink, blue, and purple is a distribution. So it's the outcomes that are actually represented with the statistical question.